Okay, so there's one more video for this, and I promise I'm going to try to make this quick. In continuing with the objects that we've been creating for homework, what we're also going to be doing is creating circles and rectangles. So what we want to do is I'm going to use a circle tool, and I'm going to specify the center point, and same thing, same rules apply to specifying specific distances. Okay, so if I want to have a fraction, so say let's say 10 inches and 10 and 3/8 inches, I can type in 10 dash 3/8 as a fraction and hit enter. Okay, and it's going to snap to that. So you can create your circles in that way. And when we start to work with our rectangles, there's actually a couple ways that you can work with a rectangle. The first way is when you click on the rectangle tool, okay, or type in the command, it's going to ask you to specify a first corner point. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see that it basically rubber bands wanting to create a rectangle. If I look down at my sub options, you'll see that there's options for dimensions, okay, and it's a capital D, which is blue, so that's basically telling me that's the letter to hit in order to activate that sub option. So I'm going to hit D and enter. And it's going to ask me to specify the length for rectangles. So let's just say 15 for 15 inches. It's going to ask me to specify the width. So we can say, 5.25 for 5 1/4 inches and hit enter. And then what it's going to do is it's just going to, in the end, ask you to just click where you want it oriented. So you'll see that when I move my mouse, it's moving around that base point, and it just wants me to click to set it. Okay, and you'll see that now I've exited out of the command, and it's basically asking me for the command as a notification that I am out of any command. What I can also do with rectangles is, again, if I click on the tool, or if I type in REC or RECTANG, I can specify the first corner, but rather than going to the dimensions, you'll see that there's two fields after specify other corner point or. Okay, and what I can do is I can actually type in, 15 for 15 inches, and then hit tab. Okay, and you'll see that it's locking in that 15 inches, and let's say 3 and 5/16 of an inch, and hit enter. And what that does is it makes a rectangle of those dimensions. So in the end, it doesn't ask us what orientation it is. Okay, it basically just sets it for us. So that's how we work with the circles and the rectangles. Now, in order to double check our work, which we should always do before we hand it in, just to make sure that you're all getting 100% and doing everything correctly, there are two commands that you can use. One is the list command, okay, and the other is the distance command, and they do two separate things. The list command, if I type in LIST and hit enter, it's going to ask me to select an object or objects. I can click on an object, hit enter, and it's going to come up with a window telling me the specific attributes of that object. Okay, so it's telling me the length of that. It can't tell me any of the spacing. Okay, so basically that's how I can double check it, in using the list command. Now, there's also the distance command, and that's really, really helpful. I use this one a lot. I type in DI for distance. And what it allows you to do is actually take a distance from one point to another, no matter if it's on the object or if it's off in the distance. So I can either take a dimension from this endpoint, okay, again, my object snap is on, to this endpoint, and it's going to tell me right by my cursor how long that is, what the distance is of that line. And then if I hit enter to redo that command, I can snap from, again, one endpoint to the endpoint on the other object, and I can make sure that that distance is the correct distance. So those are two commands that will help you to double check your homework. Now that it all looks good, okay, what we can do is now we can start to save the file and submit it for review. So again, there's three ways of doing it. There's a save button that's up at the top. There's a save command that's underneath your application menu, or you can just type in the command save, and it'll come up with your save dialog for Autocad. Now, save it where you can find it, okay? There is a naming convention for the class, so it's 14 underscore first name. Okay, not first name, but actually your first name. Okay, underscore last name, not a general, not the word last name, but your last name. And then the file's a type. So AutoCAD is always going to have a DWG file a type. Now what you'll run into is when you start to work professionally is not everybody has the most up-to-date version of AutoCAD. So what you might have to do is you might have to downsave it, okay, and basically save it as an earlier version so that somebody can open it up in an earlier version of AutoCAD. So you'll see that under Files of Type, it says AutoCAD 2013. Okay, if I expand this, you'll see that there's other versions of it. So there's 2007, 2010, 2004, and then you'll see that there's other types of files, which we're going to get into later on. I would say 2007, if you save it to that, that's fine. Basically, anybody can open that up. That's a pretty good file type. Okay, so once you save that, you can go to save, you can save it where you want, and then you can upload it to the LMS. What you can also do is, if you don't want to continually have to save down that way, what you can do is you can actually type in options. Okay, and this is where AutoCAD keeps all of its options. So if you find, for example, that your cursor is too short or too long and you want to change it, or the grip size is too small, okay, and you want to change it, you can do that here. So this is essentially where AutoCAD keeps all of its options. The files, that basically tells you where things are saved. If you go to display, okay, you can change your crosshair size. So if you want that to be bigger, you can do that. If not, you can always change it that way. What we're going to get into later on is when we start to work with XREFs, we'll see that their display is controlled there. There's also an open and save, and this is where you can automatically set, whenever you save your file, to save it down to a certain release. So right now the default is 2013. I can change that to 2007 so that whenever I save my file, it'll save as a 2007. I can also change any of my settings if you want to work with your right-click customization. If you don't want to have a menu pop up every time you right-click, you can turn on the time-sensitive right-click and make sure that it's just an enter. Okay, so it just repeats the last command rather than showing a window. Or you can go into drafting settings. You can change the colors if you want. Okay, again, it's all up to your preferences. A lot of times in model space, some people prefer a white background, some people prefer a black background. It's all up to you. That's where you can change that. Okay? And then otherwise, if you need any help whatsoever, there is a space for you to type in help for AutoCAD. But honestly, I don't find AutoCAD's help to be particularly helpful. It really is one of those cases where you have to know exactly what you're looking for in order to get help from AutoCAD. So what I would do is, if you have a question, there's so many resources on Google. You can Google it. You can use the recommended text. Okay, it's huge. It's about 3 inches, 4 inches thick. Okay, there's a reason it's that thick. It has everything in it. I would absolutely go get it. It is so extremely detailed. That it's more than just a weight, a weight to hold on papers or anything. It actually is chock full of tons of information. That's why it's that thick. But that's that. Okay, so that's it for week 1. Again, if you have any other questions, let me know. Post questions to the forum on the LMS. Post your homework to the LMS, and let me know how this goes. If there's any issues with the videos, and we'll work with it. So, good job getting through this. We'll see you next week.